Shin is your typical, ugly, useless game otaku who got trapped in a game world and now he has to fight several monsters and find a way to escape the game before they unalive him. The story begins with millions of gamers fighting to escape from a game, and a battle between them and the demons intensifies as the skull-headed demons violently isekai them. However, in the heat of the battle, Shin intercepts an attack on a female avatar and slices through the demon like cabbage, splitting it in half. Determined and undeterred, Shin vows to end the vicious cycle of the demons and liberate the millions of trapped gamers so that they can finally log out. As he decides to fight the final boss, the Gatekeeper Origin, he bids farewell to his support characters and heads to face the SS rank giant demon. On getting to the dungeon, the demon quickly launches a dragon-slaying axe, which Shin narrowly dodges, leaving a lasting impression on the ground. Shin, with all his might, aims for the demon's ugly head but misses, and the attack merely slices through its wings instead. However, to his shock, the wing regenerates immediately. They clash weapons, causing an explosive spark that only strengthens Shin's resolve as he leaps into the air and slashes multiple times at the beast's body. However, it remains unscathed as its body regenerates again. In a last-ditch effort, Shin summons the Moonlight Blade and leaps into the air. At that instant, he impales the demon's head, obliterating the Gatekeeper. As a result of the victory, the gods of the game inform him that the dungeon has been cleared and players can finally log out. Shin checks and sees players beginning to log out, leaving him behind, and just as he tries to log out too, the new gate suddenly opens, emanating a blinding light that engulfs him, causing him to faint. He awakes in a vast green field, wondering if he's still in the game or if his soul has been sent to Nirvana. To his surprise, he discovers his stats have significantly improved because he defeated the final boss, and then decides to log out for good, but unfortunately, he discovers the logout option is no longer available. At that moment, he realizes he's going to be trapped in the game world forever, and this is nothing like the plot-filled future he had dreamt of. Nevertheless, he decides to head to the Sanctum to meet his support characters and follow a magical dove as his guide. Upon arriving to the Sanctum, he encounters 3 useless hoodlums harassing a pretty elf girl. Just then, a ferocious bull monster arrives, and the hoodlums hurry off like chickens whose heads were cut off. The bull charges at the girl, but Shin intercepts and defeats it instantly. The beautiful elf girl, Tiara, thanks him and asks if he knows her master, Shni. Shin describes Shni as an elf with a striking body like Nicki Minaj, and that she was one of his support characters. However, he takes into consideration that there may be other avatars with the same name. He then asks Tiara about Shni's whereabouts, but Tiara refuses to tell him because apparently his face is too ugly for such information. She further states that the hoodlums also sought the same information. However, she says she can deliver a message for him for 1,000 jewels. Unfortunately, our MC is too broke to afford it and reveals he only has gold jail coins, which were once the poorest currency in the gaming world. But surprisingly, upon seeing the coin, she tells him that this type of coin is extremely rare and valuable, often used for amplifying magic, and worth 10 billion jewels. Realizing he could be the Elon Musk of this game, the gold digger becomes interested in knowing who he is, and he reveals that he is a high human adventurer. She tells him that all the high humans are like BlackBerry phones because they're now extinct, with only a few left who disappeared 500 years ago when a large number of people vanished from the game. Hearing this, Shin immediately realizes he's in a world 500 years after defeating the Gatekeeper. However, he thanks Tiara for the information and gives her the valuable coin. He tells her the coin will be useful to her since she's an elf who uses magic. And she wonders how he knows that she's an elf since her master had cast an illusion spell on her. Because of her black hair, she's considered a cursed symbol of misfortune, which also attracts monsters everywhere she goes. She tells Shin that she was kicked out of her village because of this curse, and her master saved her, after which she created a barrier around the shop. So as long as she's within the confines of the barrier, monsters won't be attracted to her. Shin decides to counter the effect of the curse and casts a purifying spell. but it unfortunately only changes a small portion of her black hair back to white. A few minutes later, they leave the safety of the barrier, and Tiara begins to cry as soon as she sees the world for the first time in 100 years. They soon return to the sanctum, and Sheen tells Tiara that he desires to learn more about the world and to also find his other support characters. So Tiara gifts him a letter of introduction to bypass the long waiting in the city, and upon arriving there, a random dude directs him to the Adventurers Guild. As he enters the guild, he meets Celica and her twin, Silica. Silica registers him as an adventurer, and while waiting for his guild card, Celica brings him food and offers to verify his letter of introduction. She then shows him the guildmaster Barlux, who verifies the letter's authenticity, and tells him to protect it, swearing to destroy it if he cannot. The following morning, Celica hands over Sheen's guild card and explains he can level up by completing jobs. Sheen heads to the forest and looks to harvest hilk grass, and while at it, he encounters a level 359 skull-faced jack. He immediately charges at the monster at an insane speed with his blade in hand, but the monster shields his attack, leading to an intense series of exchanges. Sheen soon realizes that the monster moves swiftly because of its light sword, and he charges at it again. He eventually slashes through the monster, but he realizes his sword is about to break, so he immediately activates the Limit Off spell, making him overpowered instantly. He then leaps at an incredible speed and slashes the monster, destroying its core crystal, thus defeating the skull-faced jack while sending its sword flying off at the same time. The monster vanishes shortly after and transforms into a gemstone, which Sheen collects. Meanwhile, the monster's sword crashes into the castle and lands in Princess Rion's room. Following this encounter, Sheen returns to the Adventurers Guild and reports the incident involving the skull-faced jack to Celica, and while boasting about his victory, he presents the gem he recovered. He mentions that his sword was damaged during the fight, and Celica, knowing such a monster is not easily slain, loses her cool and demands to see his long sword. Just then, a green-haired elf approaches them and introduces herself as Else, a colleague of Celica. Sheen reveals that the monster was over level 300, and hearing this, Else remarks that if he can defeat such a monster, then he must be as strong as an A-rank adventurer. However, Sheen asks her to keep this a secret to avoid attracting attention. Later that day, at the restaurant, Celica offers Sheen a meal, and just then, an ugly dude who looks like he jumped out of the Twilight movie franchise walks in and heads towards Sheen, carrying a giant, legendary magic spear called the Venom. He sits across from Sheen and introduces himself as Wilhelm. He boasts about being called a vampire due to isekaiing many undead, but Sheen thinks he's just a bum. Later that afternoon, while Sheen stuffs his face with food, contemplating his terrible fate, he notices a tiger-type beast girl staring at him from a distance. He offers her some food, which she eagerly accepts. She then thanks him and introduces herself as Millie. Sheen wonders if she's lost, but she tells him Wilhelm is there to pick her up. Wilhelm arrives just in time, and Millie runs to hug him, making Sheen wonder if she is his child. But Wilhelm explains she's one of the kids from the church orphanage, and that she often sneaks out, forcing him to search for her. Wilhelm is noticeably surprised that she even took a liking to Sheen, even though he has a face that would make a baby cry. As Wilhelm decides to head home with Millie, she whispers to Sheen, pleading him to rescue a fox in the woods. The next morning, Sheen pays a visit to Tiara at the sanctum, and he shows her Shnee's ancient sword, the Blue Moon, which can only be used by its creators, himself and Shnee. He asks Tiara to show the sword to Shnee, and if she recognizes it, they should meet up. He further emphasizes that the Blue Moon sword will let him know if Shnee actually remembers him, so Tiara agrees and takes the sword from him. He also gives her a teleportation message envelope to contact him if she hears from Shnee. However, she wonders why he didn't use the envelope himself, and he explains that his previous attempts to send a message had failed. Later on, Sheen decides to save the fox, and he ventures into the woods. He soon hears an ominous voice warning him to leave, but he ignores the warnings and heads further into the woods. He comes across a shrine, but he perceives that something doesn't feel right. Inside, he finds the fox Millie had told him about and appraises it, making him discover that it's dying from poison and a curse. Then, he decides to cure it by casting a spell. Suddenly, he hears a sound and quickly checks his system map to see what's happening, only to discover a horde of monsters marching towards him. He immediately unleashes his spear and summons Furrow Pierce, which instantly makes the spear glow, destroying the monsters. Following that, he summons Flashing Blossoms, slicing through the monsters with fiery lights and completely obliterating them. He checks his system map again and sees 2 monsters still around, which makes him wonder where they are since he doesn't see them anywhere. Just then, the shrine's carved structure glows and transforms into 2 ferocious wolf demons, and upon realizing that he's faced with level 674 demons, he knew he was about to get cooked. However, he manages to evade their ice darts and fiery paw attacks, and then casts Shadowbind to restrain them, but the demons immediately counter by producing a smokescreen that cloaks their presence. At that instant, one wolf demon charges at him, but he leaps high, evading its attack. As he realizes he can't detect their location in the mist, the fox signals him to step into a magic circle, so he does that and immediately begins to see the wolves clearly. The wolves, realizing he can now see them, charge together at him, but Sheen activates Arcbind, causing lightning chains to bind the wolves. Then he impales them with his glowing spear, causing them to vanish completely. Seeing this, the fox becomes excited and jumps at him. A few minutes later, Sheen decides to appraise the fox, and he discovers it's actually a top-tier monster of old called an Elemental. He's surprised that the fox looks like a small kitten instead of a human or giant fox, so he allows it to climb onto his head and follow him wherever he goes. Meanwhile, as they walk in the woods, Sheen asks the fox to form a taming contract with him, and following that, he casts a glowing spell that binds them together, and then he names the fox Yuzuha. Just then, he receives a message from Tiara informing that she finally managed to send a message to her master Schnee. Upon arriving at the guild, Sheen tries to make his report, but the 2 useless twins can't stop arguing over who will take it. After finally submitting his report, he goes to the job board to seek out a new task, and Yuzuha suggests he picks this guild successor job, which is from the church orphanage. He ponders on this for a moment, but since he's going to see Millie anyway, he picks up the job. Upon arriving at the orphanage, he's welcomed by a nun named Tria. He asks the nun about Millie, and she goes to call her. Upon seeing him, Millie becomes excited and hurries towards him to hug him, proving to the nun that he isn't a bad person. Sheen shows Millie the fox and asks Yuzuha to thank Millie for making it possible for him to find and save her. Sheen then inquires about the job description, and Tria tells him she needs a skill holder because she wants to learn the Purify skill. Sheen agrees to teach her, but in return, he wants to learn about Millie's power, and also have the church become an intel gathering resource so that Sheen learns more about this new world. At that point, Millie vouches for Sheen, assuring Tria that he can be trusted. Tria agrees to his conditions and reveals that Millie possesses the Star Composer ability, and sometimes has visions that predict the future with absolute accuracy. Tria points out that she isn't the one who's going to be learning the purifying skill, but rather the granddaughter of the former priest who was supposed to inherit the church. Later on, Rashia, the former priest's granddaughter, arrives at the orphanage, and her awkward introduction leads Sheen to assume she isn't exactly the sharpest tool in the box and is definitely in need of some guidance. Just then, Wilhelm interrupts them and goes straight to attacking Sheen like an insecure idiot. He tells Tria not to trust the buffoon, but Tria tells him that even though she also dislikes his disgusting face, Millie accepts him and declares that he can be trusted. Wilhelm grudgingly agrees to trust Sheen as long as Millie vouches for him, but warns him that if he disappoints, he will cut off Sheen's balls and feed them to him. However, Millie thought Wilhelm was too useless for his own good and wondered why his low IQ didn't let him consider every possibility before engaging in a fight. Moments later, Sheen explains that to acquire the purifying skill, they must isekai 200 undead over level 150 while holding a holy prayer orb. and upon hearing the difficulty of the task, they realize they're toast and need to start considering sending the orphanage kids packing, but Sheen, of course, offers to help them with the massive task. Sometime that evening, while Sheen and Wilhelm share a drink, Wilhelm explains that he can't stand to see the kids cry, surprising Sheen, who reasons that even though he looks pale and pretty useless, he is still compassionate. A few days later, they venture into the Ghost Plains, where they can find a large number of undead demons, but as they walk further, they are warmly welcomed by some monsters who are ready to devour them. Just as wolf beasts charge at them, Sheen activates single ablution, incapacitating the wolf demons, while Rashia, using the Holy Prayer Orb, casts the healing spell, causing the demons to vanish. Apparently, the skull demons couldn't wait to be isekai'd too. They wish to be relieved from the struggles of this useless world, so they rush towards them. Wilhelm, feeling disgusted by the filthy way they moved, quickly dashes at them and breaks their limbs, incapacitating them, and Rashia casts the healing spell again, making them vanish. They continue further into the Ghost Plane, and come across a seal created by the guild to keep high-level undead from entering. Wilhelm opens the barrier and they walk through. Once inside, they both decide to split up so that they can cover more ground. They continue attacking the undead, and Rashia levels up in the process. In another part of the Ghost Plains, Princess Rion slashes through high-level undead using the demon sword that flew into her room the previous day. Meanwhile, some group of weaklings who call themselves knights are completely useless against a high-level monster and are beaten to a pulp. However, just as the monster prepares to unalive one of the useless knights, Schnee repels the strike and saves his bum. Schnee then launches at the monster at an incredible speed and slashes the monster, breaking its core, and the knights are amazed. On the other side, Sheen and his group face a high-level monster. Wilhelm charges at it and destroys its core. Meanwhile, as Rashia continues to level up, a bright light suddenly glows from within her, signaling that she has met the level condition to learn a new skill. Due to this, her mind is immediately flooded with memories of how to use the Purify skill, and Sheen tells her she has successfully learned it. After a while, just as they prepare to leave for the day, they observe a round ball of energy in the sky, absorbing wavy, dark energy from the ground, and Wilhelm explains that it's the magic matter that drains the energy of the undead. At that instant, the ball of energy morphs into a dark, gluey liquid, and then drops to the ground, transforming into a level 804 monstrous beast. The beast immediately leaps into the sky and, with precision, lands a single punch that completely shatters the guild seal. The beast stares menacingly at them, and Wilhelm realizes that if they don't run, they might have to say their final prayers before getting sent to Nirvana, so they immediately run but are blocked by some other lesser monsters. Sheen decides to fight for his life and immediately activates Limit Off, coupled with Lightning Banker, creating a way for Wilhelm and Rashia to escape from the monsters. Sheen summons his legendary sword as he readies to obliterate the monster, and as he charges at it, Yuzuha unleashes a powerful fox fire that completely defeats the lesser monsters. Seeing this, the giant monster gives out a war cry, summoning more monsters. Just then, Sheen uses his Flying Sparrow Thunderstrike to smash the ground, causing a massive red explosion, which Schnee observes from afar. The explosion divides the ground like Moses did the sea, taking a large number of monsters along. Meanwhile, Sheen suddenly notices a blue marker on his map amidst the red demon signals and makes a detour to check it out. However, he finds Schnee, who runs towards him and hugs him. Yuzuha, noticing they might need a room for a quick plot development, decides to give them space and creates a barrier to prevent the monsters from disturbing them. However, the barrier eventually breaks from too much plot, and the giant monster becomes furious upon realizing that these fools are keeping him waiting. Sheen and Schnee suddenly combine their attacks and cast a powerful, heavenly spell called Sanctuary, and the lesser monsters vanish one after the other. As for the giant monster, Sheen summons his sword and with a single strike slashes through it, destroying its core and obliterating it. However, as the monster transits to Hades, it utters some useless words no one cares about, leaving Sheen surprised that it could even talk. Afterward, Shin and Shni catch up on lost time, and she explains that they tried looking for him after being told he had disappeared. Moments later, they hurry to catch up with Wilhelm and Rashia. Meanwhile, Wilhelm runs with all his might like a spineless fool while carrying Rashia. He suddenly noticed something chasing them at crazy fast speed and thinks it's the monster. He nearly pees his pants, but decides to man up and defend Rashia. However, just as he prepares to fight, Shin and Shni drop from the sky, shocking him. Wilhelm, realizing it's them, swears to bite off Shin's nose for getting him so worked up. Meanwhile, the Princess Rion arrives at the scene of the split ground made by Shin's blade and wonders who was strong enough to accomplish such a feat. A knight brings Shin's blade to her, which he had left on the ground, and as they observe the sword, they notice a falcon sign engraved on the sheath. The knight tells the princess he knows the blacksmith responsible for such signage, and that the blacksmith is a high human. What will Shin do next from here? Will he eventually be able to log out of the game? Find out in the next part. Let us know if you want part 2 by commenting GATE in the comments below. Also, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to our channel. See you guys in the next video. Upon hearing those words, Riones immediately realizes that only high humans are capable of forging such remarkable blades. But since all the high humans are extinct, she wonders who the blacksmith could be that wielded such a powerful blade. At that moment, she remembers that the blacksmiths are the owners of the Moon Sanctum and decides to pay the Sanctum a visit. However, the knight asks her what she plans to do if the high humans are actually back. She then reveals to him she will challenge the high human to a duel, or at the very least, marry him. The knight disapproves and advises her not to act impulsively like a moron, reminding her that she's always too desperate to attack without thinking. He cautions her against suddenly attacking the dude, under the guise of testing her own skills. Meanwhile, back in the forest, Wilhelm, who has seen Shin's powerful magic firsthand, is done with the charade and asks Shin to reveal who he truly is. Shin then tries to downplay his achievements, but Wilhelm isn't buying it. Realizing that Wilhelm has seen through his cover, Shin and Shni open up to him and reveal the truth, that they are high humans and that Shin is Shni's master. On hearing this, Wilhelm is immediately taken aback by the revelation that the skinny scumbag is the mighty Shni's master. A few minutes later, the heavy sleeper Rashia wakes up from her slumber and, upon seeing Shni, is immediately starstruck because Shni is her idol. Later on, they all walk back to the church, and Wilhelm informs Shin that his job is complete since Rashia has learned the skill, and that anything else that happens to the orphanage from then on is left for him to handle. However, Shin gives Wilhelm a message card and instructs him to let him know if anything goes south in the orphanage, calling Wilhelm a friend. This surprises Wilhelm because no one has ever called him a friend, due to his ugly, disgusting, pale appearance. After that, Shin and Shni head back to the Sanctum. Upon arriving at the Sanctum, they meet Tiara, who immediately loses her cool at seeing Shni, and her senses evaporate when she receives the shocker of her life that the homeless hobo Shin is Shni's master and the owner of the Sanctum. Later that night, Shin wakes up to a cozy, smoochy feeling and wonders what is making his mini-sized magnum charge. As he turns sideways, he notices Shni's soft melons pushing up beside him, which stuns him. The following day, as he wakes up, he notices a silver hair under the duvet on his bed and thinks it's Shni since she has slept beside him throughout the night. But as he raises the duvet, he is astonished to see an unclad Yuzuha who has transformed into a mini, underdeveloped girl. Together, they head to the kitchen and find Shni and Tiara, who are surprised to see the ugly fox with a whole new makeover and wonder when she had the time to visit Dr. 90210. After a while, Shin inquires from Yuzuha about what she was doing in the shrine where he found her. So Yuzuha tells him that she stayed there because it was very comfortable for her. He further inquires if she knows the meaning of the symbols engraved on the shrine floor, to which she replies that she has no idea. At that moment, Shin realizes that some things never change. Even though Yuzuha has changed into a female with horrible mood swings, she still carries a useless animal brain in her dumb skull. Shni, sensing the pointless conversation is going nowhere, decides to start a more meaningful discussion. So she mentions to Shin that she would love for him to meet Girard. On hearing the name Girard, Sheen has a momentary flashback of the white-haired AliExpress Pokemon and wonders why she would suggest meeting him. He tells Schnee that the dimwit should be dead since high beasts like him can only live for 150 years, and it's been 500 years since the wipeout. Schnee then informs him that Girard doesn't have much time left, and that he could die any time, even right now while they're talking. She further states that Girard has been awaiting Sheen's return, and has united the Beast Tribe, allying with the Farnid beasts, making him the first Beast King. Hearing this, Sheen then decides to travel to Farnid to see Girard, and Tierra is informed that she will be traveling for the first time in her worthless existence, making her pleased. Following this, Sheen decides to head to the guild to make swords for the journey, while Schnee heads to the castle. He then asks Tierra to accompany him to the guild, but she informs him that she will need to change her clothes and not look like a disgusting hoe. Several minutes later, Tierra walks in looking like a Japanese Tomb Raider, and they head outside to begin their journey to the Adventurers Guild. On getting outside, Tierra stretches and prepares herself for the long journey ahead. At that moment, Sheen immediately notices her well-rounded, perfectly crafted melons, and wonders which blacksmith could have created such a work of art. Tierra then realizes the bonehead zoning out while staring at her assets like a cultured idiot, so she asks him if he would love to grab some, which shocks Sheen as he wasn't expecting that. Several hours later, they arrive at the guild and meet Silica, who informs Sheen that he has been promoted to a rank E adventurer for his impressive feat of defeating high-ranking skull-faced demons. However, Sheen tells her that Tierra wants to register as an adventurer and get a guild card. He also mentions that he'll be traveling to Farnid and asks if there are any adventure gigs in that direction. Hearing this, Silica brings out a giant book that looks like the Book of Life, and informs Sheen that there is a job for a wagon escort to Beirun, which is close to Farnid. Upon accepting the job, they will be joined by 2 other adventurers. Since they have time before the gig, Sheen and Tierra decide to visit the church. On arriving there, they meet Rashia, who is delighted to see Tierra, who works at the sanctum and is an apprentice for her idol, Schnee. Following that, they head inside the church, where Millie is over the moon to see her weird white pet. Then, she thanks Sheen for saving the orphanage. A few minutes later, Rashia informs Sheen that she will be taking over as the next head of the church, which brings smiles to Sheen's ugly face. Shortly afterwards, Sheen and Tierra head back to the Adventurers Guild, where Tierra collects her guild card and is now a certified adventurer. They then teleport back to the Moon Sanctum using a crystal, which astonishes Tierra as she calls Sheen the greatest magician alive since Merlin. Once back at the Sanctum, Sheen performs another wonder and reduces the entire sanctum into a pendant, leaving Tierra in awe, who is delighted that the anime has a straight-up action protagonist. Several hours later, they arrive at the location of the gig and soon meet the other adventurers assigned. The ugliest side character in anime history approaches them and introduces himself as Gai Yin, making Sheen wonder why the illustrator would do such a crappy job. A few moments later, a short, red-haired character jumps from the wagon's roof and introduces herself as Tsubaki. Afterwards, a Smurf-sized, roughly bearded man approaches them and introduces himself as Nak, the merchant they need to protect. Upon seeing Nak, Sheen feels the human rat doesn't need protection, as he would be better off dead for being so ugly. Meanwhile, at the castle, the king is informed that the powerful Moon Sanctum has been moved from its location, making him wonder who is powerful enough to move the mystical shop, since no high human has ever been able to break into the sanctum, let alone move it. On the other hand, as the team continues their journey to Beirun, they are soon intercepted by bandits who demand money or threaten to erase them from existence. Sheen immediately notices how confident they sound and wonders if their confidence comes from the fact that he isn't built like Goku. But he assures the worthless scum that he will beat them senseless until they can no longer walk. Tierra, who is behind the wagon, thinks it wise to prove her skills, since she is now an adventurer and shouldn't be hiding like a scared cat. Suddenly, she notices Sheen's bloodlust aura, which frightens her. As she scans the area, she sees more bandits hiding in the forest, waiting for the perfect time to strike. Summoning all her confidence, she fires an arrow that impales one of the delinquents hiding in the forest. As the bandits look around in fright, wondering where Oliver Queen came from, Tierra shoots another one who goes down immediately. That instant, the 40 thieves from Aladdin realize they're under attack and charge at Sheen and his group. One of the bandits, hoping to put down Tsubaki quickly, receives a Mike Tyson uppercut that drills a hole in his gut and sends him flying. The bandits stand amazed by the boxing heavyweight attack from the smallest girl in their opponent's group. Just then, Gai Yan utilizes the distraction and slices one idiot-like cabbage, while Shin slashes two useless buffoons with one strike, ripping out their members. The leader of the bandits, seeing his entire team has left him on a one-way flight to the city of Nirvana, begs for his life. Shin then walks up to him like a true protagonist, slices his sword in half, and fulfills his promise of beating him senselessly before tying him up. He then places a sword on the scoundrel's neck, preparing to send him to his maker. However, Tiara dashes at Shin, realizing his bloodlust has taken control over him. She immediately presses his face against her heavenly pillows, as Shni always does for her anytime she is nervous. Noticing that the poor dude might probably give up the ghost from too much enjoyment, she removes his face from her full chest and walks away, leaving Shin and Tsubaki amazed at what just happened. Hours later, as they continue the journey, Gai Yan informs Shin that the bandits were sent to attack them and raid the wagon for goods connected to the church. This revelation triggers a flashback for Shin, recalling Elsa and Rashia telling him that they need official authorization from the church headquarters to appoint Rashia the next head of the church. He immediately begins to suspect a conspiracy aimed at preventing that from happening. A few weeks later, they arrive at Beirun, where Nak, the merchant, thanks them for the protection and gives them a certificate of job completion to take to the guild. Before long, they reach the guild, then convert the certificate to cash and bid farewell to Gai Yan and Tsubaki before continuing their journey to Farnid. However, Shin wonders how they will manage the long distance to Farnid, so they decide to get a wagon to facilitate their movement. Sometime later, they arrive at the wagon store. However, Shin is unimpressed with the crappy wagons and considers modifying one to make it more comfortable. At that moment, Shin thinks of getting a large wagon so he can sleep on it when he's exhausted, and as he sees it, he decides to buy it and signals upon the useless salesman. The salesman advises them that a wagon that size would need strong horses to pull it. Shin, however, thinks a beast would be better, as beasts are much stronger. A few hours later, as they leave the wagon store, Shin receives a telepathic message from Shni, informing him that she has concluded her business at the castle and is on her way to meet them. Shin then explains their need for a beast to pull the wagon, and Shni offers to capture and tame one. A few minutes later, they meet a roadside merchant who suggests they spend the night in an inn since they look like out-of-town strangers, so she takes them to a luxurious 5-star hotel. Upon seeing the expensive hotel, they curse the merchant for taking them to such a posh place, considering they are broke adventurers who only earn meager fees. With no other choice, they decide to go inside. In the luxurious room, Yuzuha immediately jumps on the bed, exhausted, knowing she might not enjoy such luxury again. Meanwhile, deep in the woods, Shni searches for a suitable beast to tame and soon encounters a giant monstrous beast. Seeing the beast, she decides it's perfect for pulling the wagon. The following morning, Shin and Tiara head to the wagon store so he can make the necessary modifications. Using his creation skill for working metal, Shin alters the axles and adds more springs to the wheels to reduce shaking. Just then, he receives a telepathic message from Shni, telling him she's waiting for him in the woods with the beast. They head to meet her and are faced with a freaking white beast demon, a 751 level Gufazio Jade. Shni soon arrives and tells them she has brought the beast to pull the wagon as promised. Just then, the beast nudges forward, using its nose to stroke Tiara's chin, nearly making her faint. Shin then tells her that the beast has taken a liking to her. Following this, Shin informs Shni that the beast is too big to pull such a small wagon, as he isn't planning on pulling the entire Middle East. Shni then instructs the beast to reduce its size, and amidst a blinding light, it shrinks to the size of a wolf, surprising Shin and Tiara. After that, Shin asks for the beast's name, and Shni tells him it's Shimmer, possessing illusion and thunder skills. They set off for Farnid, and Shimmer pulls the wagon incredibly fast. On their way, Shimmer narrates his sad childhood story to Yuzuha, revealing how an adventurer killed his mother, and he managed to survive by running as fast as he could until an elf girl saved him. Shimmer further reveals that he followed Shni because she had a familiar smell, like Tiara's. That instant, Tiara then remembers saving an injured puppy as a child, and is shocked to learn that the innocent puppy has been transformed into a monster by the cruel world. After hearing the story between Shimmer and Tiara, Schnee suggests transferring Shimmer's ownership to her. Hence, she dissolves her contract with the beast, allowing Tiara to forge a new one. After forming the contract, Tiara almost passes out from exerting so much energy to create the bond. The following week, as they journey between cliffs, they encounter two elves of opposite heights who inform them they've come to pick them up on orders of the king, Girard. As they walk, Schnee informs Sheen that the elves are Girard's grandchildren. They soon arrive at Girard's mansion, and as they enter a room, they notice the presence of an ugly-looking turtle and elephant, wondering what the Ninja Turtles are doing in a Japanese anime. Just then, they are faced with an old Girard who welcomes them to his mansion and tells Sheen he's happy to see his ugly face again. Girard then introduces Sheen to Wolfgang, the current king of the beasts, his daughter Kuore, and his two animal confidants Vanku and Rajim. That evening, Girard and Sheen reminisce about old memories of fighting together, both experiencing a flashback. Minutes later, Girard reveals to Sheen that he's dying soon and has been waiting a long time for his return. With all the seriousness in the world, Girard begs Sheen to duel with him, as it has been his lifelong wish. Sheen suspects something queer about the ugly old man's story, thinking Girard plans on dying in battle with him. However, Sheen accepts the duel, since it's his dying wish. That night, Girard summons his people and informs them of the duel, stating that it will occur in a week. However, Kuore is vehemently against it, believing Girard is wasting his life over a useless duel. So Girard silences her filthy mouth, revealing that it's been his lifelong dream to duel Sheen, the strongest high human. As days pass, they all enjoy each other's company, and Sheen helps Girard to repair his hand gear so he can fight at his best. On the eve of the duel, Girard and Sheen engage in a sentimental conversation. Girard asks Sheen if he would go home and abandon Schnee if he eventually finds a way to return to his world. Sheen replies that he would, as that was his only sole reason for fighting. The day of the duel finally arrives, so they venture into the woods and get to the duel's location. That moment, Sheen then instructs Schnee and Tiara to wait behind for him, as Girard also bids farewell to his family in case he enters Nirvana from there. Shortly afterward, Sheen and Girard jump off the cliff and commence the duel under the watchful eyes of everyone. They immediately charge at each other, with Girard adorning his fists with his hand gear and Sheen clutching his legendary blade. Upon colliding, their strikes cause a powerful explosion that rocks the Earth's foundation. They continue to attack each other, causing several explosions with each collision, to the amazement of the spectators, who wonder if it's World War III. However, Schnee informs the others that the duel has yet to peak. They're just warming up. After much attacking and damage to the forest, Girard informs Sheen that the time has come for him to intensify his attack. That instant, Girard transforms into a ruthless white wolf, though he feels it isn't exactly right to bring a gun to a knife fight. He then remembers Sheen telling him he wouldn't use the extraordinary powers he acquired in defeating the final boss in the duel, as it would be unfair. Nevertheless, the scummy old man engages in his beast wolf form. Girard then advances his attack and charges at Sheen, who tries electrocuting him but misses as Girard vanishes, only to appear behind him and claw at him to end the fight. Sheen manages to deflect the attack with his sword, and then knocks him back with a reverse blade, causing their weapons to collide and create powerful lightning. In the last instant, Girard prepares his ultimate attack, and fires a powerful energy blast at Sheen, who shields it with his blade but soon realizes the old beast is behind him, and they clash weapons at ultra speed. With unwavering determination, Girard attacks again since he's apparently having a strong tension with Sheen's sword and wants to be unalived by it. Sheen, noticing his attack, thinks fast and leaps 30 feet into the sky in an epic move, using the powerful cosmic energy of his blade to launch a devastating blast. However, Girard counters with his green mystic fire, causing an atomic explosion that defies all laws of physics and further destroys the forest. Suddenly, Girard manages to land a weak blow to Sheen's torso but falls backwards, coughing up blood, and transforms back to his human form. In his last moments, Girard thanks Sheen for being his greatest friend and is happy that for once, he managed to land a strike that actually hit Sheen. Sheen, however, shows him his unrivaled power, and Girard, in awe, realizes Sheen is the strongest man alive. A few minutes later, as the dust clears, Sheen brings back a dead Girard to the top of the mountains to meet the others and tells them not to mourn, as that is Girard's wish. That night, the village buries Girard, shedding tears for the passing of their former beast king. Meanwhile, Sheen sits alone in the night, haunted by the memories of Girard's death. Upon seeing him, Schnee rushes towards him and envelops him in her warm embrace, assuring him she will be there for him. Hearing those words crushes his soul, and he finally breaks down and cries. Thank you all for joining me in this journey, but the story doesn't end here. Sheen and his team will continue to navigate the game world and encounter even more thrilling adventures. Let us know if you want part 3 by commenting GATE in the comments below. Also, don't forget to like this video and subscribe for more awesome anime recaps. See you guys in the next video.